The screen was shaking. So was the ground. "Morgan, get out of there. The storm's hitting in less than 30 seconds. That was the last human voice he ever heard. Then, the Martian sky exploded in light. The solar flare struck the main module like a blade of radiation. Panels burst. Alarms screamed. Fire spread like serpents through the low-gravity corridors. The world turned red, not the calm red of Martian dust, a red of endings. Elias Morgan, commander of Mission Ares Known, ran with everything he had left, of his body, of his sanity, of his hope, toward the emergency shelter. The ground shook beneath his boots. A support tower collapsed less than 20 meters from him, hurling hot debris into the air. The oxygen tank on his back flickered with warnings. The system voice in his helmet crackled. "Oxygen critical, 26% remaining." He didn't answer. No time for conversation, not even with machines. His crew was gone, burned, shredded, silenced. When he reached the backup shelter, the door jammed halfway. He had to force it open with shaking arms, the metal groaning under the tension. As soon as it shut behind him, the world went completely still. He collapsed to his knees, breathing hard, soaked in sweat, trembling. The shelter was built for 3 days of isolation. He stayed there for 216. His daily message never changed. "Commander Elias Morgan, Ares 9. If anyone's listening, I'm still alive." He repeated it across every frequency, every day, out of habit, out of faith, or maybe out of fear, because to stop speaking would be to accept the silence. The food was powdered, stretched far past expiration. The water was filtered so many times it tasted like rust. The oxygen was fed by a last resort generator, degrading more each night. But the loneliness, that was absolute. Elias didn't cry anymore. Even that felt like a waste. He spent his days fixing what he could, writing logs no one would ever read, and staring up at the Martian sky like a man begging for a miracle, or a death. That day, something changed. Not an alarm, not a storm, a voice. It started faint, static, maybe interference. But then, something inside the comms, a sound that wasn't from Earth. And it didn't sound like NASA. It was older, calmer, something that sounded like it knew exactly who he was. "We are dying too, traveler." Elias froze. The voice spoke perfect English, but the tone was strange, as if it were learning the language while speaking it. "This is Commander Morgan. Who the hell is this?" Silence. Then, a child's laugh came through the static, and then, coordinates appeared on the screen. A location, far from base, a place long outside the grid. Somewhere that, according to the signal, still had power on Mars. Elias stood slowly, eyes hollow, pulse spiking. No way this is real. But deep down, he wanted it to be, because the worst part of dying on Mars is being forgotten on it. The next morning, Elias Morgan woke up shivering, not from cold. The thermal lining in his suit still functioned, but something deeper, a chill that started in the spine and leaked into the mind. He couldn't stop thinking about the voice. He replayed the transmission at least 50 times, scanning every wavelength, looking for a signature, a NASA tag, a military prefix, anything. But there was nothing, just static. And one line, crisp and impossible. "We are dying too, traveler." No mission code, no call sign, no encryption, and then the coordinates. He uploaded them to the rover's backup system. The path stretched hundreds of kilometers across a zone marked unmapped, inactive region. A dead zone, no solar relay, no known terrain scans, no reason for anyone or anything to be out there, unless they weren't human. He stared at the path on his cracked display. If he left, there was a chance he'd never make it back. The shelter's power was failing. The oxygen reserves wouldn't last. His best-case scenario. 2 days with full rationing. This trip. 3 days minimum. Maybe less if he drove like hell and the terrain cooperated. But Mars never cooperated. And yet, He couldn't stay. That night, he spoke into the recorder again, not to command, not to mission control, but to his daughter. He hadn't said her name out loud in weeks. Anna, if you ever hear this, know that your dad didn't give up. I didn't go silent. I didn't die waiting. I chose something, even if it was crazy, even if it wasn't for Earth. He pressed send. Then he packed everything he had. The rover was meant for short-distance field work. Half the cameras were fried. The solar cells were cracked. One of the rear wheels made a scraping noise that drilled straight into his skull. Didn't matter. Elias drove. For hours. The terrain was familiar. Flat plains, red dunes, impact scars like bone-deep bruises on the planet's skin. Then, slowly, things began to shift. The rocks turned sharp, jagged. The soil color changed from rust to a darker hue, almost purple. At one point, his onboard AI flickered back to life just long enough to whisper, "Topography mismatch. This zone is not part of any known Martian scan archive." He kept going. No stars, no sun, just the blood-colored haze of the Martian sky. Then the radio crackled again. Not words this time. A song. Faint. Mechanical. Childlike. A lullaby. He couldn't place the melody. But it felt old. Wrong. The voice returned. Not as sound, but a sensation in his helmet. A pressure in the air around him. "You heard us. And we heard you. Come, traveler. You are close now." Elias slammed the brakes. In front of him, rising from the dust like a scar, was a structure. Not rocks. Not caves. Architecture. He stepped out of the rover. Air pressure alarms screamed immediately. The radiation outside was spiking. But he didn't stop. He walked, stumbling, past shards of what looked like metal fused with stone. The walls weren't natural. They curved too perfectly, like half-buried ribs of something once alive. Symbols ran across them in patterns, shifting as if reacting to his presence. Then he saw it, a doorway, buried half in sand, glowing faintly from within. Power. After hundreds of millions of years, something inside was still on. His breath fogged the helmet. Oxygen level, 11%. He could still turn back, still make it halfway home. But instead, he stepped inside. The doors didn't open. They recognized him. They welcomed him. And the voice, no longer distant, whispered directly into his mind. "Now you've come. Now we begin." The air inside the structure was still, not dead, not abandoned, just waiting. As Elias stepped across the threshold, his boots crunched on a surface that felt like sand, but glowed faintly beneath his feet. The walls pulsed in slow, rhythmic intervals, like a heartbeat, ancient and patient. His suit systems tried to process the environment, radiation levels, temperature, molecular composition, but the readings kept looping. Unknown, unknown, unknown. He stood in a narrow corridor carved from a material that looked like black stone but reflected light like metal. It was cold and warm at the same time. Impossible, yet there. The airlock behind him hissed shut. Not with force, with intent. Elias turned. There was no handle, no keypad, no going back. His helmet HUD flickered. The internal oxygen readout dropped to 10%. He was burning time. Every step now was a choice between discovery and death. He pressed forward. The hallway opened into a vast circular chamber. The walls were covered in flowing, carved glyphs. Not random, not ornamental. Designed. They moved subtly when he looked away, returning to stillness when he faced them. In the center, hovering just above the floor, was a crystal structure, cracked, humming, and suspended in a shaft of violet light. Elias approached. Cautiously, he extended his hand. The moment his fingers crossed the light, the room changed. A wave of sound, not a noise, not music, but language, filled the space. A voice, not from speakers, but directly into his skull. "You are carbon. You are brief. You are listening." He stumbled back. Oxygen at 9%. Sweat poured from his brow. "Who are you?" he said aloud, voice trembling. The crystal flared, and suddenly he saw them. Images poured into his brain, not like memories, but like stolen dreams. Cities across Mars, towers of crystal and bone, skies not red, but silver blue. Creatures, humanoid in shape, but translucent, light-based, fused with technology. He saw them die, one by one, not by war, but by silence, a collapse, a failure to adapt, a loneliness too heavy for even their minds to carry. He saw a final act, a choice, to build a beacon, one that could reach across dimensions, across time. "We reached for voices and found only echoes," said the voice. "But then you spoke." Elias stared at the crystal. His breathing became shallow, oxygen at 8%. Why now? Why me? Silence. Then a second presence joined the first, softer, more familiar, a child's voice, the same from the radio. "Because you were alone, like us." He dropped to his knees. The room dimmed, then brightened again. Another projection came into view, a holographic journal entry, a recording made in the alien tongue. But as he listened, it shifted to English. "They have not come. The last of us sleep in code. If another mind reaches us, they will carry us or bury us." More messages followed. Dozens, then hundreds. Some were distorted, others clear. Some were just weeping, echoes of voices that had long since died. Then he heard something that shattered him. His own voice. "Commander Elias Morgan, if anyone's listening, I'm still alive." A message he had recorded 2 weeks ago, now bouncing back at him through a system millions of years old. His voice had triggered it, activated it, awakened something. They hadn't called him, he had called them. The voice returned. "You seek to return to your world, but it is fading." He stood, eyes burning. "My team is dead. My ship is gone. I have nothing. You have us." A wall shifted at the far end of the chamber, revealing a pod, ancient, still humming. "You are compatible." He backed away. "Compatible for what?" "For merging." The lights pulsed faster now. "I can give you breath. I can give you path. But I need form. I need flesh." Oxygen at 7%. His hands trembled. Outside, he could see a weak transmission coming through the rover's long-range antenna. A burst of green on the feed. Earth signal. Scrambled, but real. It repeated over and over. "Rescue window in orbit. Ares 9. Response requested. This is control." Repeat. "This is control." Earth was reaching back. The timing was a cruel joke. He could go back to the rover, maybe. Or he could enter the pod, merge with something that wasn't human, and maybe never be forgotten. The voice asked again, now almost pleading. "Elias Morgan, will you carry us?" He closed his eyes, and for the first time in over 200 days, he didn't feel alone. Elias stood still, staring at the pod as if it were a loaded gun pointed at his chest. The chamber around him hummed, low and steady, not mechanical, not electric, but alive. It was like standing inside a breathing organism. Every sound was part of a larger rhythm. His oxygen levels hit 6%. His fingers were numb. The edges of his vision darkened. His mind, exhausted by weeks of solitude and starvation, fought to make rational sense of what stood before him. The voice, Anhari, as it now called itself, returned, calm but insistent. "You are close to end. We offer beginning." Elias took a slow step back. "You want my body. We require a form, a host, a vessel. In return, you survive. You walk again. You return." "Return to where?" The chamber dimmed again. A new image appeared, not a projection this time, but a full sensory simulation. Earth, but not the Earth he knew. It was younger, wilder. The continents were fractured differently. The air was thicker. There were no satellites in orbit. Then, Mars, not the dead rock he was trapped on. A living planet, with oceans, with forests. With them, Anhari spoke again. We can send you, not forward, but backward, where breath still waits, where we once stood. Elias stumbled, gripping the edge of the console for support. You want to send me into the past? Into memory, into root, not just to live, but to warn, to change. He blinked hard. The room spun. 5%. His thoughts began fragmenting, and then the signal came through again. His suit's emergency comm picking up a pulse from the orbiting relay. A voice, garbled, distorted, but unmistakable. This is Control, Ares 9. Morgan, we read you. If you can respond, signal now. It was real. The rescue team had launched. Earth hadn't forgotten. Elias clenched his jaw, staring at the pod, then at the weak signal on his wrist display. Earth or Anhari. Rescue or rebirth. One life or something else entirely. His breath came harder now, shallow, gasping. 4%. The pod opened with a hiss. Soft, warm air spiraled out. He felt it on his skin, even through the suit. Not Martian air, something filtered, artificial, but breathable. He could live in there, but he wouldn't be himself. Anhari spoke again, softer this time. You are the first to answer, the first to feel. You're kind. You suffer alone. But you still reach. The voice paused, then added, let me reach with you. Elias's vision flickered. He saw his daughter, Anna, in the backyard, chasing fireflies. He was laughing, the recording in his brain, the one he'd watched 1,000 times, the one that always ended too fast. She looked up and whispered, don't die quiet, Dad. Then she was gone. Elias opened his eyes. The warning on his HUD turned red. Critical oxygen, 3%. No time left. The radio crackled again. The rescue signal stronger this time. Clearer. This is Control. Elias, do you copy? If you're alive, ping now. We are approaching orbit. He looked down at the transmitter, then at the pod, then at his hands, shaking, dirty, bleeding, and finally, he made a choice. He stepped into the pod, laid down, and whispered, if I can't go home, then let someone go on. The hatch closed, and Anhari whispered back, Elias Morgan, you are now us. Pain shot through his skull, 1,000 voices crashing into his nervous system. He screamed once, loud and raw, then everything went white, not empty, but full. He was not Elias anymore, but he still remembered being him. And far above, in low orbit, a rescue shuttle scanned the Martian surface one last time, then turned away. Too late, too far, too quiet. Elias Morgan was no longer breathing, but he was not dead. Not exactly. His body floated within the pod, motionless, but his mind was wide open, like falling upward into a sea of light. Sound, memory, emotion, language, not his own. This is not death, Anhari said. This is convergence. He couldn't speak, didn't need to. The thoughts moved between them without sound. His fears, his questions, his past, his pain. Every piece of Elias was laid bare in that moment, catalogued, understood, and somehow respected. He saw everything. Anhari was not a single being, but the fragmented consciousness of an ancient civilization, one that had outlived its own biology, digitized into frequency, scattered through space-time when their sun collapsed. They had built these machines, these pods, as anchors, waiting for something, someone, with enough emotional density, enough cognitive strength to carry them again. For millions of years, there had been only silence, until Elias spoke. And now, he was the bridge. The pod cracked open hours later, or days. Time was fluid inside. Elias stepped out, gasping, stumbling forward, except he didn't fall. He hovered. His boots no longer touched the ground. His suit had been absorbed, replaced by a translucent mesh that pulsed with soft light along his spine and limbs. His skin felt untouched, but his senses were heightened beyond comprehension. He heard vibrations in the air, like faint music embedded in the walls. He felt heat signatures through the stone, and above all, he felt her, Anha-Ri, with him, inside him, not as a parasite, but as a companion. She didn't control him. She guided. "You are still Elias," she whispered, "but more." He turned toward a dark corridor that had not been there before. The structure was opening, reconfiguring, reacting to him now. The walls displayed flashes of language, his language, guiding him deeper. He walked, room after room, archive after archive. He uncovered pieces of a world that had once flourished long before humans ever formed civilizations, cities that had floated in magnetic fields, creatures that communicated by resonating light across crystal arrays, a species that once believed in the permanence of thought and then learned that even memory can rot. They hadn't died in war. They had faded, unable to hold on to purpose in a universe that stopped listening. Their final act had been the message, scattered across frequencies that no human tech had ever been tuned to. But Elias had stumbled onto it, not because he was meant to, but because he refused to stop speaking. In the center of the complex, Elias found a circular chamber with a hollowed core. A machine sat there, shaped like a sphere, fractal in design, constantly folding in on itself. Inside it, energy swirled, trapped in motion, not fuel, not a reactor, a time well. He didn't understand it completely, but Anha-Ri did. "It is not time travel," she explained. "It is temporal re-anchoring, a return to a point when we still existed." A chance to seed warning. Elias reached out, his fingers brushing against the field. He saw Mars again, green and blue, teeming with life. He saw himself walking among the ancestors of Anha-Ri's people, not as a god, not as an alien, but as a messenger. "You can go back," Anha-Ri said, "but not to your own time. I know. You will be one of us. They will fear you, then follow you. You will help them adapt, survive, change the ending." "And Earth?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Then, "This message, we'll reach it. One day." Elias stepped away from the time well. He sat down on the floor, back against the wall, breathing steadily. He knew what came next. He would step through the machine, be sent billions of years into the past, become part of a civilization that would never reach Earth, but maybe, just maybe, leave a mark on it. But before he left, he did something unexpected. He reactivated the rover's short-range transmitter, hooked it into the power grid of the ancient structure, and recorded one final message. To Earth, to anyone who might one day find it. "This is Commander Elias Morgan, Ares 9. Mars is not empty. Marsan remembers. If you find this, know that we were never alone. Not then, not now, not ever." He hit send and stepped into the light. Far above, in orbit, the rescue ship received a ping, too faint to lock, too strange to decode. A whisper, lost in static. "We are not the first, but maybe we are the last to remember." And just like that, the signal vanished, as if it had never existed. Light consumed everything. Not blinding, not hot, just infinite. Elias didn't feel pain. He didn't feel fear. He didn't even feel his body, not at first. There was only movement, backward, deeper, through time itself, not like falling through space, but through memory, as if the universe were remembering him, replaying him. His heartbeat slowed, then quickened. Then, impact. A violent jolt knocked him to his knees. The ground beneath him was soft, not sand, not rock, grass. He gasped, and air rushed into his lungs. Air, real air, oxygen-rich, warm, breathable. He opened his eyes and saw Mars, but not the Mars he knew. Not red, green, sky glowing pale blue with clouds stretching across a living atmosphere. Mountains rising in the distance, their peaks laced with ice. Rivers glittered in the light of a younger sun. Forests, yes, actual forests, moved with the wind. He turned, trembling. Behind him stood a towering city, not built, but grown. Spiraling spires of crystal and stone wove upward like organic sculptures. Bridges hung between them like silk threads. Creatures moved through the streets. Tall, luminous beings, not quite solid, not quite flesh, the ancients. Alive, Anhari whispered inside him. This is our time, our moment before extinction. Elias took a shaky step forward. His feet touched living ground. The grass responded to his presence, lighting faintly with each step. They noticed him. The beings stopped, turned. Their faces were abstract, smooth, ever-shifting, but their eyes were clear, focused. They stared at Elias like he was a ghost, a vision, a prophecy made real, and in a way, he was. One of them approached, taller than the rest, wearing a robe of semi-transparent threads, glowing with pulses of violet light. She stopped 2 meters from him, then spoke, not aloud, but into him. You carry the forgotten. Elias nodded, unsure how, but certain he was understood. I carry. Anhari. Murmurs passed through the crowd, a ripple of sound and thought. The tall figure placed one hand to her chest and spoke again. Then you are the traveler, the echo. The return. She turned, gesturing for him to follow. And Elias, without a word, stepped into a world that hadn't existed for billions of years. Over the next several days, or what passed for days in this ancient time, Elias was shown everything. The Council of Memory brought him into the archive core, a living library built beneath the surface, storing not books, but consciousness. Thousands of preserved minds, frozen at the edge of death, waiting for new vessels. He learned their truth. Their pride had doomed them. When their sun began to fail, they had tried to escape time itself, scattering their minds across frequencies that couldn't die. It worked, but too well. The result was silence, isolation, fragmentation, madness. They had no bodies, no time, no contact, just thought. Until Elias's voice reached across that silence, until a human reminded them what it meant to be alive. You gave us form again, Anhari said. But we are not the only ones listening. That sentence haunted him, because she was right. On the 7th cycle, the stars changed, literally. The sky shifted. Something passed across the upper atmosphere, a ripple, dark and cold. The city lights dimmed, and the council summoned Elias to the core once more. They had intercepted a signal, one not of their own making. A foreign frequency, unlike any encountered before, aggressive, jagged, not seeking connection but consumption. An entity, or perhaps a mechanism, designed not to communicate, but to overwrite. This is the Wraith signal, the archivist explained. A remnant from an older universe. When it finds mind, it devours. Elias remembered something, the static, back in the pod, before the voice, that first noise. It had included something else, something trying to break through the message. Now, he understood. He hadn't just activated Anhari, he had woken something else too, and now, it had followed him. Back here, to the beginning. That night, Elias stood at the edge of the city, watching the sky fracture. Black filaments stretched across the stars, like veins pulsing through space. The ancients lit their spires, activating planetary defenses that hadn't been used in 10,000 generations. But even then, they were afraid. Anhari's voice came to him once more, this time strained. We are alive again, because of you. But now, we may die with you too. Elias clenched his fists. He had brought a warning across time. He had brought memory. He had brought life. But maybe he had also brought death. The sky cracked, not with thunder, but with silence so dense, it bent sound itself. A ripple swept over the city, distorting the horizon, warping buildings, shaking the towers grown from crystal and bone. Creatures in the streets looked up, their faces wide with a fear older than their own time. From above, the Wraith signal descended. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even physical. It was pattern, hostile code embedded in radiation, intelligence stripped of identity, a thought form, ancient and merciless, designed to overwrite consciousness itself. The ancients called it the unmind. Elias stood on the highest terrace of the memory spire, watching the atmosphere twist. The world felt alive again, but not in awe, in terror. Anhari whispered inside him, "It sensed us when we awakened. It exists to hunt what remembers. It feeds on memory, on sentience." Elias clenched the railing, knuckles pale. "I brought it here." "No, we did." But it was already searching. Below him, the Council of Memory activated the Arc Matrix, a planetary shield woven from both matter and light. Towers across the horizon lit in sequence, sending tremors into the earth as ancient technologies, long dormant, came roaring back to life. But everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The unmind had consumed stars before. This world was just another page in its book, ready to be burned. Inside the archive core, Elias was taken to the seed chamber, a room few had ever entered. The walls shimmered with preserved thought, ancestors suspended in harmonic resonance, stored minds, billions of them, souls without homes. One of the counselors turned to him. "You were a traveler. You survived in death. You carry a form that bends time." Elias nodded slowly. "You're asking me to carry them, aren't you? To carry some, the purest, the first. If we fall, they must not fall with us." He looked at the seed device. A capsule, organic metallic, meant to bond with a living host, not biologically, but cognitively. If he agreed, Elias Morgan wouldn't be one person anymore. He'd be thousands. "I've already got one voice in my head," he muttered. "Now you want to put a city in there?" Anhari responded with a quiet warmth. "You won't carry them. You'll carry hope." He stared at the device for a long moment, then took it in both hands. It dissolved on contact. The moment it touched him, he dropped to one knee, choking, overwhelmed, but not in pain. In connection, he saw lives, dreams, losses, births, wars, celebrations, extinctions, ascents. He didn't just see their world, he became part of it. And in that moment, Elias Morgan, once the last man on Mars, became something more, a living archive. But time was up. The shield broke. A shockwave of black static rolled across the surface, severing towers in half. Crystalline structures shattered like glass. Creatures dissolved mid-motion. The unmind had arrived. It did not speak. It did not demand. It simply took. Whole districts flickered and vanished. Not physically, but cognitively. Memories erased. Identities dissolved. History deleted like corrupted files. And then it turned toward the core, toward Elias. Anhari cried out within him, "You must run!" "I'm not running," Elias said, standing. "You can't fight it. I'm not going to fight it either." He placed his hand on the platform at the center of the chamber, a launch spire, a one-way device, a temporal bullet. "You said I could carry them," he whispered. "Then send me where it'll never find us." "Where?" Elias thought for only a second, then said the one word that never left his mind. "Earth." The platform rose, wrapping around his body. It locked him in place. The city outside began to collapse in waves of unraveling thought. The last of the ancients stood together, looking toward him. Not with fear, with faith. Anhari's voice trembled. "You'll be the first to return. You'll carry the memory of us all." "I won't forget," he said. "And maybe someone will remember you." A final surge of light burst from the launch tower, and Elias Morgan was gone. Mars fell silent. Again, but beneath its surface, deep in a tomb of lost time, a signal was left behind. Weak, encoded, waiting, and far away, across space, a planet called Earth turned beneath blue skies, unaware, but not for long, because something was coming, and this time, it carried a warning. He woke up beneath trees. That alone was impossible. Elias Morgan had not seen trees, real ones, in over 2 years. and certainly not on Mars. He gasped, lungs drawing in thick, wet air filled with pollen, soil, and something sweet. His fingers dug into soft grass. Light filtered through green leaves above. A forest, not a simulation, not a hallucination. Real. He sat up fast, heart racing. His skin was bare. His suit, gone. No helmet, no HUD, no visor alerts, just a body. And yet, he felt different, not injured, not weak, but not entirely human anymore. The voices were still there, silent for now, but watching, not whispering, not speaking, just present, as if thousands of minds were waiting quietly behind a curtain in his brain. The archive. He looked around, scanning the forest. Birds chirped, insects hummed. A breeze rustled through the canopy. It wasn't Mars. It was Earth. And not just Earth. Primal Earth. The mountains in the distance were familiar but younger, untouched. No roads, no satellites, no signals. The air was heavy with life. He was millions of years in the past, but alive. Elias stood, staggering slightly as his legs adjusted. His muscles remembered gravity, but his mind was still sinking. A distant roar echoed through the trees, not machinery, something alive. Elias turned toward the sound instinctively, hand reaching for a weapon he no longer had. But then he stopped. He didn't feel fear. He felt ready. That night, he built a fire. The stars overhead were impossibly bright, constellations unfamiliar. No ISS, no satellites blinking across the sky, just raw sky. He sat alone, staring into the flames, but he wasn't alone. The archive stirred. One voice emerged, soft, familiar. "We are safe now." It was Anahari. Elias lowered his head, voice low. "Are we the last?" "We are. The first. Now." A pause. Then she added, "But we won't be alone for long." And Elias understood. This was not the end of the story. It was the origin. The next days blurred into instinct. He moved through the land like a ghost, observed, learned. He slept in caves, drank from streams, hunted when he needed to. But something strange kept happening. The forest reacted to him. Animals didn't flee. Trees leaned toward his footsteps. At night, glowing moss grew in his footprints. Plants bloomed where he passed. It was subtle, but impossible. The archive wasn't just inside him. It was bleeding outward, changing the world. He started leaving carvings in stone, diagrams, symbols, fractal patterns only he and Anahari could understand. Messages for the future. He knew no one would find them soon, but one day, someone would. And then, on the 37th day, he heard it. A voice. Not inside. Outside. Human. "Hello?" Elias froze. The voice echoed again, closer this time. "Is someone there?" He turned toward the sound, heart pounding, stepped carefully through the brush, and then he saw her. A woman in full exo-survival gear, holding a scanner. Her helmet was off, brown hair tied back, eyes wide in disbelief. She stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. He stared back like he was seeing the impossible. Her voice cracked. You're Elias Morgan." He couldn't speak. She took a slow step forward. "You died on Mars. Your mission, Ares 9, was lost in 2052. I studied your case. You're from the past." Elias's breath caught. 2052. This wasn't prehistory. He had overshot back, and now bounced forward again. Time hadn't just bent, it had looped. "Who are you?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Dr. Lena Kovacs, Temporal Science Division. We picked up a signal." "Yours." She held up a small device, a glowing crystal, etched with symbols he recognized. His symbols, the ones he'd carved into the rocks. "We followed your warning." Her voice trembled as she said it. "And we're not alone." She turned, and behind her, in the clearing, stood a team of researchers in exosuits, some human, some not. Elias took a step back, eyes wide. The humanoids standing among the team shimmered faintly, their features shifting subtly in the firelight. He knew them, the ancients, or what remained of them. They survived, Lena said. We don't know how, not fully, but your message changed everything. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. You weren't just a survivor, you were the first contact. Elias fell to his knees, overwhelmed. His entire journey, the storm, the silence, the voice, the pod, the past, it had all led here. He looked up at the sky again and smiled. I'm not the last, Anhari whispered in his mind. A final confirmation. You were never meant to return home. You were meant to create one. They sat in a half circle around the fire, humans and ancients. Elias could barely comprehend the moment. Just hours ago, he had believed himself to be the last of something. Now, he was surrounded by the future. Lena's team had set up temporary stabilization beacons around the forest clearing, devices that shimmered like soap bubbles as they realigned the surrounding timeline. We weren't supposed to find you here, Lena said. The signal we tracked, it wasn't meant for us. It was meant for itself. A loop, a closed one. She handed Elias a tablet-like device. On the screen, a waveform pulsed in strange rhythm, layered, recursive, almost alive. This is your voice, Commander, or what's left of it. He stared at it for a long time. This isn't just me, he said. This is them. We think so too. The memory you carried, the archive, it didn't stay in your mind. It spread. Elias looked down at his hands. He hadn't aged. Not a wrinkle, not a scar. No signs of cellular decay. You're not fully human anymore, Lena said, quietly. Not entirely. He nodded. He already knew. He didn't sleep. He didn't need to eat. His body was alive, but different. Sustained by something deeper. Something older. Something that had survived extinction once already. That night, as the fire burned low and the stars pierced the sky like ancient eyes, the ancient spoke. Not through voice, through memory transfer, a ritual that allowed Elias to see. And what he saw shattered him. They hadn't all died. Some had survived, scattered, broken, lost in different pockets of time, exiled from their own world by the Unmind's final strike. Most had faded into nothing, but a few had hidden. In Earth's timeline, sleeping inside magnetic anomalies, buried in mountains, locked within glacial echoes, waiting for a signal, for a host, for him. Elias wasn't the last of the ancients. He was their fuse, the bridge between what was, what could be, and what must come next. The next morning, the team moved Elias to their mobile lab, a fold-space unit embedded in a natural cave system. Lena's crew worked quietly, respectfully. They understood who he was, or what he had become. But it was Elias who had the real question. Why now? Lena met his eyes. Because you're not the only one who came back. He froze. 2 weeks ago, another signal broke through the polar distortion, she said. Same structure, same frequency, but wrong pattern. Inverted, hostile. She pulled up a hologram. A dark waveform. Erratic. Burning at the edges. Elias stared at it. The Unmind. It had survived too. How long before it finds this place? He asked. Days, maybe less. And Earth isn't ready for it. Lena shook her head. No. But you are. They held the final meeting in the cave's central chamber. The ancients, now awakened fully, stood among the humans like living echoes of a myth. Elias stood at the center. He wore no armor, no weapon. But he carried the memory of a world that had died before, and refused to die again. You were the message, one of the ancients said. Now you are the answer. And the shield, Lena added. The Unmind is drawn to signal, to memory. It'll come here first. Looking for him. Elias nodded. Then I'll give it what it's looking for. Anhari's voice returned in that moment, calm, unwavering. One mind cannot fight it, but one mind carrying all of us might hold the line. He turned to Lena. What happens if I fail? She didn't answer at first, then said softly, then we all forget. Forever. The chamber fell silent, and Elias Morgan, once stranded, once broken, once forgotten, smiled. Then let's make sure that doesn't happen. That night, the stars shifted again. A tear formed in the sky, a black thread unraveling above the tree line, pulsing like a diseased heartbeat. The unmind had arrived. It didn't scream. It listened, waiting for a voice to devour. Elias stepped into the clearing alone, the archive glowing along his spine, and he spoke, not in English, not in Martian, but in memory. You tried to erase us, but we remembered. The sky cracked open, and the last battle began. The sky broke. Above the tree line, the stars twisted into spirals, eaten away by a pulsing black core of static, not a hole, not a ship, but a presence, a negative thought, older than language, older than time, the unmind. It had no voice, no face, no intent beyond one, erase. Elias stood alone beneath it, not with weapons, but with memory. Thousands of voices moved within him. Stories, moments, songs, laughs, losses, whole lives once erased by silence, now alive inside him. The unmind descended like smoke turned solid, seeping through dimensions. It pulsed in waves of anti-thought, erasing insects in the trees, sterilizing ground beneath it, undoing everything it touched. Anhari's voice steadied him. You are our light, and you are mine, he whispered. Then he opened the archive. His body lit up in pulses, along the spine, into the chest, then bursting into the air. Glyphs burned into the ground in every direction, spiraling out from his feet. The earth responded. Memory wasn't just stored, it was now projected. Visions of the ancient cities, the spires, the crystal oceans, the people laughing under alien skies, erupted around him like ghosts returning to the world. They filled the air, wrapping around the void of the unmind like walls of story. Do you hear us now? Elias shouted. The black core recoiled, its edges frayed. Not in fear, it didn't know fear, but in resistance. It had never been met with remembrance. It struck. A wave of erasure tore across the field, a shriek of silence. The team in the cave watched in horror as the landscape around Elias collapsed. Trees turned to ash, soil into dust. The shielding systems overloaded instantly, but Elias stood still. This is not yours. Another surge hit him, harder. The archive flared, his body lifted into the air, his skin fractured with light. The stories inside him screamed to live. He remembered Anna, her voice, her laugh, her tiny hand holding his finger the day she was born. He remembered the first message. If anyone's listening, I'm still alive. And now he screamed it at the stars. I remember. The unmind collapsed into him. All at once, a final strike, a total overwrite, and Elias absorbed it. For seconds that felt like centuries, everything went white, and then silence. Not dead silence. Peace. Lena ran toward the center of the impact site, her boots crunching over crystallized soil. The trees had gone quiet. The sky above had returned to stars. At the center stood a crater, smooth, glowing. Elias was gone. Only a single object remained, a small stone disk etched with a spiral of glyphs, and a voice, softly echoing from it in English. We were not the first, but maybe we are the last who remember. She held it to her chest, tears streaming down her face. The ancients gathered silently behind her. No words, just recognition. Year 2087. The Martian surface was quiet under the wheels of the Prometheus rover. Dust danced in the thin air. Sensors scanned for anomalies. And then, a ping, from deep beneath the surface, a forgotten structure, long buried. Inside, A blinking light, a transmitter, old, cracked, but still speaking. A voice echoed through mission control back on Earth. "This is Commander Elias Morgan, Ares 9. I don't know if anyone's out there, but I think someone's been listening." The room fell silent, then erupted in motion. Dozens of voices scrambled to lock the signal. They didn't know the whole story. Not yet. But one thing was certain. He made it. Not back home, but into history. And far across time, in a forest that no longer exists, flowers bloom where his memory touched the ground. And they never stop blooming.